Hey, what's up guys? We're coming at you with a brand new Yu-Gi-Oh! Deck profile, and today we're going to be taking a look at my September update for my pure Trickstar deck profile. Now, I do want to mention before we jump into it that this deck is featured on some duels that we currently have up on the channel against Mermails, so if you guys want to check those out, I'll put links to them in the description of this video. I also want to mention that for this deck profile, we are going to be proxying the new Trickstar card that came to us in the Link Vrains Duellist Set over in Japan, which is Trickstar Fest. And I'll talk a little bit more about Trickstar Fest when we get to it in the deck profile. So therefore, this deck profile isn't technically a 100% tournament legal deck profile, but pure Trickstars really do need this one specific spell in order to, play more rather than an engine, of course, because whole Light Stage did get hit from 3 to 1 on the most recent ban list. Now that that's out of the way, guys, let's jump into it and hope you enjoy the profile. Of course, starting things off monster-wise, we have 3 copies of Trickstar Candina. When she's normal summon, go grab any Trickstar card from you want from your deck, and ping your 200 points every time a spell trail card they activate resolves. Thankfully, Candina's still at 3 after the ban list. I feel like if they hit her as well, we would be in a lot more trouble. Moving on, 3 copies of Trickstar Lycris. Of course, quick effect, target Trickster monster you control, special summoner, bounce the other Trickster to your hand, and whenever your opponent adds a card or cards from to their hand, ping them for 200 points of damage for each card. Obviously, one of the most infamous Trickstar monsters, mandatory 3 of at this stage. Easy to put out on the field, great for link material, great for burn material. 2 copies of Lilybell. I always like running 2 because it's a recycle engine for us in our deck. Which is nice. Also can be special summoned if we add her to our hand outside drawing. So really nice, hard once per turn on that effect. But the add is not once per turn. 1 copy of Mandrake, 1 copy of Nightshade. Mandrake as a discard target. So when you discard her, she can come back out onto the field, which is really nice. Nightshade, if she's used for the link summon of a Trickstar Link monster, she can come back to the field. Both of these monsters get banished if they leave the field after using these respective effects. And Mandrake's other effect is if she's used for the link summon of a Trickstar Link monster, you can target a monster your opponent's link monster points to, make it to tag 0. It's not super relevant. You mainly use her for the discard effect of like 1-for-1 or Crimson Heart. And then, of course, Nightshade being the 1-for-1 target and can make some pretty cool plays with her over there. 2 copies of Trickstar Korribane. Korribane can become a bit of a brick in your hand if you run 3. She can call herself out to the field if you control no monsters or all your monsters are Trickstars. And of course, she's a honest-like effect in the damage step, where she can double the original attack of a battling Trickstar monster until the end of the turn. Now, you can only use each effect once per turn, and you only use 1 effect per turn and only once per turn. So she becomes a bit of a brick at 3, and I've had a few situations in some games where I know it's kind of awkward, but it's more casual games where I've been given a Kaiju and Korribane can't call herself out onto the field because I have a monster that's not a Trickstar. So I feel like 2 copies is perfectly fine. You can bump her up to 3 if your heart sees fit. Moving on to the remainder of the monsters, which of course are hand traps. We have 1 copy of Honest. I was thinking of bumping Honest up to 2 if I can find space. Pretty standard, especially with those combos with Korribane, which is really nice. 2 Ash Blossom, and then 2 Droll and Lockbird. Pretty standard, pretty straightforward while we're running those. Droll, of course, for the Droll and Lock combo. It is in the deck. It's not the main way to win, but it is a way if you do need to use it. Moving on to the spells, we have 1 copy of Trickstar Light Stage and 2 copies of Trickstar Live Stage. Obviously, Light Stage got hit to 1, otherwise you'd still be running 3 Light Stage, 2 Live Stage, like I talked about in a previous profile. Light Stage, you know what it does. When activated, go grab a Trickstar monster. When your opponent takes battle or effect damage from a Trickstar monster's effect, they take an extra 200, and you can stun a back row, forcing them to either activate it in response or in the end phase if it's legal, or it gets sent to the grave. On the other hand, Trickstar Live Stage has 3 effects. Its first effect is when it's activated, you can grab a Trickstar from your grave, add it back to your hand. Then, if you control a Trickstar Link monster, you can summon one of the Trickstar tokens, which are really lovely. And then if your opponent controls a back row, you can summon a Trickstar token as well. So the last 2 effects are hard once per turn, and the turn you use that effect, you can only summon a Trickstar, but that's not too much of an issue in this deck. It's nice that they finally gave Trickstars use of tokens that they can use, and because a lot of their Link monsters do require you to specifically use Trickstars, so it's nice that they have that kind of spamming, and we get to see more of that with Trickstar Fez. 2 copies of Trickstar Magical Laurel. It's the equip spell, kind of like a Primordial Burial in a way. So you target a Trickstar on your grave, you special summon it, equip it with Magical Laurel. It if that Trickstar monster deals battle or effect damage from an opponent, you can call out another Trickstar from your hand. It's a searchable monster reborn for the archetype, which is very nice. You can only activate it once per turn, but that doesn't really matter because, you know, it's still perfectly nice. Next up, 3 copies of Trickstar Fest. So this is the new card I was talking about that just came out in the OCG. No word when it's coming out in the TCG. So it summons 2 Trickstar tokens, which is nuts. It gives you 2 tokens that can to your field, and then of course you cannot summon any other monsters the turn you use this card except Trickstars. It's not really an issue because pretty much our entire deck is Trickstar monsters. And then of course its other effect is if our extra deck Trickstar monster would be destroyed by battle or card effect, we can banish it from the graveyard instead. So very, very nice card, very, very nice effects, nice spam for Trickstars. Run it at 3 because it gives us 2 tokens, so many things we can do with that. And of course, the artwork's really nice, featuring Divaritas and Sweet Guitar. Seeing Sweet Guitar featured on cards is nice because her actual card is, let's be honest, it's pretty useless. Moving on to the more generic spells. We have 1 copy of 1-for-1, obviously, for our target of Nightshade. 1 copy of Monster Reborn. 1 copy of Terraforming. All straightforward. Terraforming hit to 1, so pretty... Obviously, we can only run 1. 2 copies of Cosmic Cyclone, 3 Called by the Grave, just so we can get rid of those pesky hand traps, as well as other graveyard effects, which is really annoying. And of course, Cosmic Cyclone to get rid of annoying continuous spells, or those pesky Magician Pendulums, like the Endymion Pendulums, which are pretty annoying. Trap-wise, 3 copies of Reincarnation, straightforward, banish the opponent's hand, draw the same amount, banish it from your grave, summon the Trickstar. The second effect is easily more relevant in this deck than others because it allows you to keep link climbing, but now that we do have access to the Trickstar tokens, link climbing isn't as much of a problem as it was in the past. And rounding off the deck, we have 1 copy of Metaverse, as to go ahead and search field spells and activate them, and then 1 copy of Solemn Warning and 2 copies of Solemn Strike, rounding off the main deck. So anyway, guys, that's just it for the main deck. Let's jump into the extra deck. We have 1 copy of, starting off with the Link ones, 1 copy of Trickstar Bloom. So she requires a level 2 or lower Trickstar monster to summon. So she's limited that she can only be made by, I think, 4 cards in the archetype, but she can be made with tokens. But the main play, of course, is to use Nightshade to make her, and then Nightshade will come back. When she's summoned, you can force your opponent to draw a card. The other effect is completely irrelevant and never comes into play. 2 copies of Holy Angel. Could easily bump Holy Angel up to 3 in this particular build because she is the main playmaker of the deck. Of course, we're using the Prismatic Secret from the Link for the Vrains box because it's just gorgeous. This artwork, of course, is in the TCG from the Dual Power. So she's 2 Trickstar monsters. Any Trickstar monster she points to cannot be destroyed by battle or card effect. Here's the kicker. Whenever Trickstar monster you summon to a zone she points to, you get to burn your opponent for 200 points of damage. And then whenever your opponent takes battle or takes effect damage from Trickstar monster's effect, she gains attack equal to the damage that they took until the end of the turn. So obviously the idea is to make Holy Angel super big and swing. So very, very important to run at least 2 copies of Holy Angel. 2 copies of Divaritas. Divaritas is also limited to how you can summon her. She's 2 level 3 or lower Trickstar monsters. When she's summoned, burn your opponent for 200 points of damage. And then she hits your opponent for 200 points every time they summon a monster/monsters. So obviously a nice way to finish is with her, Holy Angel and Lycris out on the field, so you can do a lot of damage, make your Holy Angel super big. Your Divaritas and your Lycris can't be destroyed by battle, and they're going to have a tough time beating over all your monsters, which is really nice. And you'll be doing a lot of damage, so that when you go to next turn, you can go ahead and possibly make into Crimson Heart. So Crimson Heart is 2 Trickstar monsters, and each time a Trickstar monster is normal or special summoned to a zone she points to, you gain 200 life points. Again, I've talked about previously how that's kind of cool, how she can gain new life points and the other Trickstars deal damage, but the main important part of Crimson Heart is by discarding a Trickstar card as a hard once per turn, you can force you and your opponent to each draw a card, and if you have 2,000 or more life points to your opponent when you activate this effect, you get 2 cards. So obviously put key places in the graveyard, so you can put Reincarnations in the graveyard that you can use to special summon monsters. You can put Trickstars in your grave that you want to bring back with Magical Laurel to get some extensions off there, which is really nice, and you can even draw into some decent cards too, which is great. 1 copy of Catbat. Catbat isn't really irrelevant 100% of the time in this deck, but she's cute. She's one of my favorite monsters, and yes, so she does point middle left, middle right, which is her biggest issue. Her attack Her attack reduction effect is pretty decent if you really need to beat over something, and you can go into her and do a lot of damage by summoning a lot of monsters next to her, because each time a monster or monster she points to is destroyed by a card effect and sent to the grave, you get to ping your opponent for 200 points of damage, which can combo off really nice with a Foxy Witch if you do have Foxy out on the field. As well as that, each time your opponent takes damage from a Trickstar monster's effect, face up monsters they control lose 200 attack points for each monster she points to through the end of turn. So, pretty decent if you can do a lot of damage in your turn while she points to a bunch of things. Yeah, you can get a lot of attack reduction, which is nice. 2 copies of Foxy, because Foxy is incredible. 2 or more fairy monsters, so she's generic for some reason. If she's special summoned, you can burn your opponent 2 points of damage for every card they control. If this Link summon card is destroyed by battle or card effect and sent to the grave, you get to burn your opponent again for another 200 points of damage for each card they control, and then special summon a Link to a lower Trickstar from your extra deck. So that's really good. Of course, you can only use that each effect as a hard once per turn, but it doesn't really matter because you can use her to float into something like Divaritas, which is probably the main concept that you could do, and then you get some extra burn damage off there, which is really nice. And the fact that she burns whenever she's special summon means you can bring her back with Magical Laurel, you can bring her back with Reincarnation, and do lots of cool combos with burnings there. 1 copy of Deflindium. Deflindium is pretty average of a monster. She can recover your banished Trickstar cards, but she does have to be in the extra monster zone, and she does have to point to a Trickstar monster. So she does have a little bit of an issue unless you put her right underneath the extra monster zone, but she doesn't really do that much relevant stuff for you. But if she swings and your opponent controls Link monsters and she points to Trickstar monster, you can salvage banished Trickstar cards up to the number of Link monsters your opponent controls, add them to your hand, and she gains a K for each. So situational, yes, so you run her at 1. 2 copies of Bella Madonna, which is the finisher. I mean, 2 is nice. Sometimes they find a way to sneakily get rid of 1, and you need to make a second one. So when she's Link summoned, she points to no monsters. She's unaffected by other cards' activated effects. If she points to no monsters as well, you can burn your opponent 200 points of damage for every Trickstar monster in your grave with a different name. The last effect is a hard once per turn, and of course, if you can have Holy Angel point to her, which you can without her triggering without ruining her ability to use her burn effect, you can make Holy Angel pretty big pretty quickly. And then rounding off the deck, I mean, we just got a borrow load because it's borrow load. You're never really going to go into it, but it's there in case you need it, and it is relatively budget right now. But anyway, guys, that is it for the deck profile. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Are you guys as excited as I am for Trickstar Fest to come to the TCG? I'm hoping it's coming in Dual Devastator, because Dual Power did bring us both, Foxy Witch and Magical Laurel, which were in the original Vrains box over in Japan. The chances are kind of low, but there's always a chance that they could import it. I really hope they do, because it's a very much needed card for the Trickstar archetype. If you want to see it in action, remember to check out the duels that I have here, which are in the description of this video below. And if you like the video, remember to like and subscribe. Check out some of my other deck profiles. Check out the older Trickstar deck profiles so you can see the kind of lineage that the deck has had over the last couple of years or so. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll catch you for my next video.